everybody, and welcome to a discussion today about really an extraordinary film that we have on the Realist, Bad Press, which is a documentary about actually great press and and the importance of it, and that combined with kind of the really unique landscape of tribal leadership and how those two mix or don't. And with us are the co-directors, Joe Peeler and Rebecca Landsberry-Baker. Thank you very, very much for being here, and we're really, really thrilled to have the film on the platform. And I'm sure it's one that you've gotten before, but what was the origin story for how this film got started? Because you certainly didn't know where it was going to go.
That's so true. We had no idea like how long the project would last, but I can kick us off here. And it was really a kind of a culmination of like all my life experiences on the professional end, as I'm the executive director for the now Indigenous Journalists Association, and I've been with the organization for what, like 14 years, I think, this month.
Wow.
But before that, I worked for the Muskogee Nation News, which is how I know some of the subjects of the film. Angel Ellis, of course, I hired her as my editorial assistant when I was back at the newspaper back in the day. But that's really where I got my feet wet in tribal media and journalism. So, I had worked with Jared Moore and Sterling Cosper and some of the, key journalists in our story. So they've obviously been there for a really long time. And I knew about some of the, the joys and the challenges that come with, covering your own, tribal community at this like hyper local level. So I used to come home from my job as the editor of the paper, and I would tell my now husband, Garrett, who is friends with Joe, like, this is happening today in the newsroom. And like, you just, it's like you couldn't write some of this stuff. And then, so that was back in the earlier like 2000s. And then, fast forward to 2015 when the Muskogee Nation News is now protected with their free press legislation. And then in 2018 or 2019, I guess it was, I guess it was the end of 2018. We had this session to repeal it from the National Council, and in 12 hours, free press that has been so hard fought for these many years, and then just by the Muskogee Nation press at the time. They changed the name of the newspaper. It used to be Muskogee Nation News back in the day, but now it's Muskogee Media as the outlet. They fought really hard for this free press protection at the legislative level, and then it was just repealed in a span of 12 hours. So at the time, I was actually serving on the Muskogee Media editorial board. And that was completely disbanded when free press was repealed. So I came along with Garrett to Joe to say, hey, Joe, like this is happening in the Muskogee Creek Nation. And I had seen it happen before in my role at IJA with the Indigenous Journalists Association. And I said, being a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation, like I can't just let this be swept under the rug this time. Like, is this something you think would be worth documenting? And I want to make sure that, our Indigenous journalist side of the story is told. And this story isn't just one of those that gets swept under the rug like so many times the stories of, free press in Indian country do. And so luckily he wanted to sign on to our project and help lead it, because we couldn't have done, the story without each other. So Joe was really such a critical piece of this team and making the film happen. So I'm just so grateful that he wanted to sign on. And I think Angel is obviously a magical part of our story, and anchored us in so many ways.
But yeah, it really did come together so quickly. I mean, you guys came to me, you and Garrett came to me over the weekend, and you had obviously like known Angel for a long time. You hired her at the paper originally. I had never met Angel, So we hopped on a Zoom probably on Wednesday after talking about the project initially on Saturday or Sunday. And it became like immediately apparent. Oh, we just need to hang on to Angel's coattails, and we just need to jump right in. And if there's anybody who's gonna fight her government and potentially win, it's gonna be her. And so we should just like kind of follow along. And we started filming. I flew out to Oklahoma on Friday, less than a week after initially chatting, and filmed Saturday, and that scene is in the movie. So it just picked up and didn't stop for 4 years. We were filming right up until our premiere. It was totally nuts. But I think what hit me out of the gate was I was shocked that freedom of press was something that I just took for granted as an American citizen, and just thought, everyone's covered. There's nothing to worry about. The various governments and officials and politicians can not like it, and can, as we've seen, billionaires can do what they can to stifle voices and stifle journalists, but we're set, we're good. And that it became quickly apparent to me I was completely wrong. Millions of people are not protected by freedom of press as it stands in the US, and a lot of it is happening in our own backyards and on native reservations around the country. There's only 5 out of 574 federally recognized tribes that have free press laws on the books, and so few of those are even constitutional, and so many of them can be repealed. And so it's just like an insane dearth of free press in Indian country, and I had no idea. And so I felt, especially maybe at that time as it was starting, it was kind of, everyone was still kind of getting used to the perpetual Trump era that we're kind of in now. And I was feeling I'm super plugged in. I'm super like news aware. I'm reading. I'm listening to the radio. I'm totally the most plugged into the government I've ever been before, and it was a surprise to me. I think it would be a surprise to many other people, and so that kind of combined with just like having one conversation with Angel Ellis, it was enough to get us going.
Yeah, I mean, a great film, loves to have a great character that is leading the story, your bus driver, so to speak, and so with Angel, I guess. Now, Rebecca, you had known her, so you knew, I guess, because I've never met her, that she was a force. And
Absolutely.
and Joe, you said you kind of recognized it in one Zoom call. What Once you got on the ground, did that opinion change at all?
I think it was pretty much confirmed day one. I have a vivid memory of so the scene that we shot was a legislative meeting, and it starts early. And so I fly into uh, Tulsa and drive to Okmulgee, Oklahoma. I've never been there a day in my life. On Friday night, I get set up and I have to be at the legislative building at like 7 a.m. And so I'm up super early, getting the camera ready, doing all this stuff. Never set foot on the tribal government grounds at all. Learning as I go. And I remember pulling up in the parking lot, and Angel's standing outside with her cigarette, and she's just smoking, and I'm frazzled. I'm like nervous to meet her, nervous to go into the meeting. Are they going to kick us out? What's going to happen? Just all these questions. And Angel just takes a drag of her cigarette and goes, "You ready to do this?" and throws it on the ground and stamps it out. And I go, "Yeah, let's do it." And she just barreled right in. It was like she's like a Clint Eastwood character, it feels like. And then over the filming, and maybe Becca, you can attest to this. I just feel like she got more and more um, deeply engaged. She got more kind of like soulful, more tuned in to her role at the tribe, more tuned into how she could affect her fellow citizens' future, and it became more real. It was less of a an act, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I absolutely think that is true. And for Angel, she said many times in interviews that, like, our cameras were kind of like a shield for her to be able to do some of the things that she wanted to do as a, reporter, but didn't feel like, maybe she had that like accountability. And so when we were in the room, I do think that changed some things for her and maybe gave her some more, confidence to be the eventual, like, newsroom leader that she is today, because she is now the director of Muskogee Media. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, in many ways our project Bad Press has really like empowered her, and so I'm really grateful for that, this experience of making the film was additive for, not just Angel, but for, this community of Indigenous journalists broadly, versus, how filmmaking can be extractive, especially in these vulnerable or, communities that are underrepresented in media. And so I'm very like happy, as our main protagonist and subject of the film, that she, like, and still today when she goes and does, Q&As with us, she's our team leader. People don't care to hear from me and Joe. They just want to hear from Angel. So, which is totally, we're happy with that. So she has found her place. I think this is yeah, as a filmmaker, really makes me so happy that she really has like come into her own after, like, how many years we've been doing this now? Like, are we like 6 years?
Oh my
And
gosh.
my gosh, yeah.
There is as a viewer, there's a sense of danger in the film. First, for Angel, and for the newspaper as a whole, I remember very vividly watching the scene where someone opens the drawer and says, "This is the archive of the tribal nation's history," and it's all paper, and you think, given the tension that's in the film, somebody's going to come in here later and tear this up. I just know that's going to happen. And now, I'm not going to give away whether it does or not, but it's that sense of danger is sort of palpable, which is great editing and great filmmaking. But was that true for Angel herself? And then secondly, for you as filmmakers, because you insert yourself into something that's pretty high tension.
Yeah, there's another journalist, Lindsay Krabel-Burton. Shout out to Lindsay, she's amazing. She's a Cherokee journalist, and in the film, she says, "You don't know if they're going to come and arrest you, the tribal government, if you publish the story. If there's something that they don't like, they can maybe, with some jockeying, stick the police on you, and you don't know what's going to happen." And I think that mindset looms over all of the journalists, Angel included, I think. And it really is a way to ice stories in advance, just the threat. They don't have to walk in and tell you exactly what to publish. You know exactly what they can do to you. And so maybe you're going to think twice before you publish that. I think that was very, very prevalent with Angel. And I think, Rebecca, you could maybe talk to the fact that it's also like a danger in the community. Like, if the movie is not accepted well, and like for you guys to just be members of the community, it's a tight knit community.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's something Angel and I, talked a lot about, is probably the main like risk for us to both, be taking that on, because, as a journalist, you assume some risk anyway. And I think being a journalist in Indian country, it's, again, such a hyper local community that you're covering. Angel talks about, one of the photos that she had on the front page when I was working as editor there is, this handcuffs photo of a tribal official, and which she was actually, she was later fired for. And so it's like those kinds of things that, if you're just in straight journalism, you're winning awards for that kind of coverage. But in Indian country, like, that kind of stuff can get you fired. And Indian country takes note of that. It's not just, like the chilling effect that Joe talked about. It's not just in your own newsroom, but in Indian country, everyone's looking at everyone else. And when it comes to, tribal journalism and what everyone's doing. Again, the joys and the challenges that come with covering those communities, people are definitely paying attention. So I think it has, again, that ripple effect of not just being, for Muskogee Creek Nation, like, okay, we're going to like back off in what we're covering if we're covering governmental affairs, but that's going to, ripple across Indian country for sure. And, it really goes back to the original point, I think, that Joe is making too. It's really whoever holds the purse strings has the power when it comes to what's being reported. And again, that's true at the federal level, and the national level and the news media that we've seen, and also definitely true for Indian country. And so I think, some of those threats that were there and looming over the reporters in the newsroom were, if I report on this, are they going to shrink my budget to like $1 a year so they can say, oh, we didn't completely wipe out your budget, but here, do the news with, with $1, see what you can do with that. And so, and, I know personally, when I was there at the paper, I had a chief who came in and fired my entire staff, except for me, and said, I still need the paper to go out. So I'm going to keep you on board and you need to make sure that the paper goes out, even though I fired your entire staff. So those are the kind of very unique challenges that journalists in Indian country, deal with on a day-to-day basis. And again, it's just such a unique set of joys and challenges that come with that. But, Angel, like I said, I think she navigated it the best she could, but I think having our cameras there certainly made her feel empowered to take on those risks. And despite whatever the aunties may think, to move forward with being a part of the film. But luckily, like everywhere that we've screened the film, for journalists broadly, for Indigenous journalists and their newsrooms in Indian country, like I feel like the accuracy and the feedback that we've gotten is that, like, okay, you nailed it. And that was, like, I think so gratifying for us as a filmmaking team to say, like, okay, you captured the humor, especially that's within the newsroom, which was super important, and having like that lived experience. And I think people could think, oh, it's a story about free press, about governance and all of these heavy topics, and it is, but also it's funny. And I think the Indigenous people or Native people in general, like that's one of the things about our like storytelling is that we're going to use humor as a survival mechanism, to just deal with these very stressful situations that you're, put in. It's the only thing you can do sometimes is laugh, at the absurdity of things and situations that you're, put in. So I was glad to hopefully have captured that accurately for, these different like audiences and represent.
Oh, absolutely. There's some absolutely hilarious moments, including what may be my favorite, final shot of a film in a long, long time. Uh, will
I love to
definitely
hear
leave
Love
you with a
that.
smile. Um, but what you're talking about, does it seems akin to some of the battles that independent filmmakers in general are fighting, like why independent film as an art form is really vital, because the moneyed interests may not like what you're doing, but yet it's incredibly important to hear the story. And I'm curious if you see that playing out in your work, and the sort of the why behind it's so important to support independent film.
Absolutely. I mean, we're in such a strange uh, era in the documentary market currently, and it kind of started at our premiere. That kind of 2023, the documentary distribution market, kind of the bottom fell out, and it's been interesting to see the trend grow even greater toward movies that are driven by celebrities, true crime, or if you're lucky, sports. Maybe that is like the other thing. Even music docs have really kind of gone by the wayside, which is a genre that I love, and they've even kind of gotten less viable unless it's some extreme Led Zeppelin, like some huge act, right? And I think like that has an effect on the info that's getting out to Native and non-Native citizens. It's just like these stories need to be told. And the thing that got me into documentaries, certainly, and the thing that I think documentaries thrive at is introducing audiences to something and someone that they've never heard of or they've never known before, right? And so I think we've got that in our film, that kind of like thing that I love about docs, which is like, this is so important and you have not even ever heard of it. Like there's so few people outside of even tribal journalists. We spoke with tribal citizens who didn't know that their own tribal newspaper was just basically a government newsletter. They thought it was real news because it's shaped and looks and designed like a newspaper. And so it's just like that thing is so important. And that's kind of what certainly independent documentary, but independent film in general is like a beacon for. And it's just gotten harder. And it was hard when we were making it, and it's just gotten harder as it's been distributed.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned the premiere. You premiered at Sundance?
We did. Yeah, we premiered at Sundance.
And what was the reception?
Reception was fantastic. I mean, it was kind of overwhelming. Prior to our premiere, we had screened the film for 10 people. We had one screening that had 10 people at it. And then we had a couple of trusted friends. So I bet all in, maybe under 15 people had watched the movie. And then we walked into a premiere that was a sold out 500-person room. And it was just kind of like, strap in, let's see if it works. We had no clue. And the response was fantastic. It was really cool. Variety compared us to All the President's Men and Harlan County, USA, which is like, I mean, if there's a Mount Rushmore of movies that live in my brain, that would be it. And we ended up winning a special jury award for freedom of expression. And they also mentioned in the jury, the jury statement said, best ending of a documentary ever. So I was very, very happy about that. And clearly you feel the same way.
I sure do. Rebecca, how was the Sundance experience for you?
Oh yeah, like Joe said, like overwhelming, but in the best way. Like a lifelong like experience I will never forget. And Angel was there too. She brought her daughter with her, Evelyn, and so they got to go up on stage and accept our award on the film's behalf. And there's just such a special, incredible experience to share that with the world. And then again, like taking it from Sundance now, and then what did we do, like 50 festivals? More than like 50 festivals, something like that, and all over the world. Joe and Angel got to go to Poland and screen the film, where there were so many connections. So I think it was really enlightening for us to like see that we were not just making a film about Okmulgee, Oklahoma, but that it has so many tie-ins to what's happening again in the national like landscape and then internationally. So it's just really exciting to see the impact that it has had and keeps having, in Indian country especially. And with my work with IJA, that was always what I had hoped that it would be, is this is the launch pad for other tribes to hopefully be inspired by this journey and to be brave in your fight for freedom of the press. And so I hope that is a legacy that the film continues to have.
I am certain that it will, and I hope that it does, to maximum effect on the Realist. I think it's just central to what we all try to do as independent filmmakers, to some of the things that you were talking about, Joe, and so I think again, it's a perfect film for what we're trying to do, and it's just one of the great films that I've seen in the last few years. So congratulations to both of you, and can't wait to talk with you and Angel at the Q&A. So thanks for being here.
Amazing. Thank you. And we're so excited to be a part of the Realists. I mean, it's just such a great group of films, and we're happy to be out here and at the forefront of independent filmmaking and distributing.
But no, thank you so much, Michael.